Stick around till the end. This story only gets darker. And if you think you know where it's going, trust me, you don't. They say men don't cry. I've come to believe it's not because we're strong. It's because we ran dry a long time ago. All the tears we had turned into concrete. Heavy, gray, cold. The kind of stuff that hardens in silence and cracks when nobody's watching. My name's Thomas Grayson. I'm 56. Used to be a contractor, floors, walls, rooftops, you name it. Now I mostly sit in the house I built with my bare hands, haunted by echo and regret. No wife, no kids in sight, just the hum of the fridge and the occasional creak of old joists I once considered perfect work. I met Lauren back when I still believed life could surprise me in a good way. She looked like something out of an indie film, the kind where you don't get what's happening, but it's beautiful anyway. Gas station, 7:30 a.m. She grabbed a Red Bull and a notebook full of inspirational quotes. I grabbed black coffee, like my mood, like my odds back then. She looked at me and said, "You've got the eyes of a man building someone else's dream." I didn't get it. Not right away. But it stuck. Kind of like epoxy on your hands. You only notice it later when it starts to itch. A few months later, we were eating dinner on my tiny balcony, watching an old oak twist the sky into branches. She wrote poetry. I laid tile. We were different, sure, but we laughed, we listened. At least I thought we did. I built her a house. Not a metaphor. Actual foundation, real nails, real bruised knuckles. Every beam, every hinge, I picked them out. She wanted a Pinterest kitchen with soft lighting and white cabinets. I made it happen, even though my hands weren't meant for soft things. Every morning, I wake up first. I'd brew the coffee, watch her sleep with that little notebook clenched in her hand. She mumbled in her sleep. Sometimes she whispered, "Don't leave me." And I'd think, where the hell would I go? We took trips. Yellowstone, Alabama, once even Mexico. She wanted to see Mayan pyramids. I hated flying, but for her, I flew. We were like an old rocking chair, squeaky but solid. Or so I thought, until the cracks started showing. The kind of cracks no level or patch can fix. First came the silence. Not angry silence. Worse. Indifference, like I was just background noise. Then she started commenting on my clothes. "You could try something new," she'd say. "What do you want to wear to work, Lauren? A tux?" She stayed out later. Creative writing classes, she claimed. She typed away on her laptop every evening, never looking up. And me? I started talking to the damn TV. No joke. Catching myself asking the news anchor, "So what's next, huh?" That's how lonely it gets. I was tired. Not in the muscles, in the soul. Like someone had stuck me in a corner, turned me to the wall, and whispered, "Stand there." And shut up. And I did. Because I loved her. Because I was scared. Because I didn't want the truth. Not if it meant losing what little we had left. And tell me, what the hell was I busting my back for 12 hours a day? I wasn't some half-wit. I was trying to give her the world. She wanted the stars, and I was breaking bones to hang them. Sometimes I'd wake in the middle of the night, and she wouldn't be in bed. I'd find her in the kitchen, smoking. She quit before our wedding, but there she was, staring out the window like she was waiting for someone better to arrive. I never asked, because I already knew. Not the facts, maybe, but the feeling. The gut-deep dread. This house. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't fit inside four walls. It slithers into your thoughts, eats your memories, makes love feel like some old ghost story. And this was just the beginning. The rest? Oh, it gets worse. I felt in my bones, in my spine, which ached every morning, in my hands, which no longer reached for her, in my eyes, which started avoiding hers. I'm Thomas Grayson, the man who built everything and then got demolished. If you've made it this far, you already know things aren't always what they seem. But trust me, we're just getting to the rot beneath the tiles. They say a marriage dies slowly, not with a bang, but with sighs, shrugs, quiet dinners where the fork scrapes the plate louder than the conversation. I used to think we were just growing apart, like people like to say, but that's a lie we tell ourselves because she's slipping through my fingers and I don't know why sounds pathetic. Truth is, I saw the cracks long before they became chasms. It started with little things. The way she rolled her eyes when I told the same story twice. The way she started keeping her phone face down. The way she flinched, barely, when I reached out to touch her arm at night. Just a twitch. But I noticed. You notice everything when you're desperate to hold on to something dying. She started reading those self-help books. The ones with titles like Reclaiming Your Inner Goddess or When Love Becomes a Cage. I tried to joke about it. Told her, "What's next? Yoga with wine and goat therapy?" She didn't laugh. Not even a smirk. That silence hit harder than any slap. And that's when I started lying to myself. I told myself it was just stress, that she was tired, that I was tired, that we were both just older now, not colder. But deep down, I knew she wasn't with me anymore. Not really. Her body was there, sitting across from me, stirring her tea. But her mind? Her heart? God knows where they'd wandered off to. Somewhere younger. Somewhere less stained by drywall dust and work boots. Once I caught her staring at her laptop with this soft smile. Not the kind she used to give me. It was warmer, intimate, like the screen was whispering something I couldn't hear. When I asked what she was working on, she shut it fast like a guilty teenager. Said it was just journaling. Right? I should have pushed, should have asked, should have demanded to see it. But I didn't. Instead, I nodded and poured myself a drink. Cheap bourbon. Burned like hell going down. Felt appropriate. Funny thing is, men like me, we don't explode. We erode. Quietly. Piece by piece. We don't yell. We shut down. We plaster smiles over bruised egos and keep carrying the damn groceries, even when our hands are shaking. There was one night I remember crystal clear. She came home late. Said the class ran long. Her lipstick was a shade she never wore for me. Her hair, freshly brushed. I asked how it went. She shrugged. Fine. And just like that, walked past me like I was a coat rack. That night, I sat on the porch until 3 a.m., just breathing, listening to nothing, trying to convince myself I wasn't being paranoid, that I wasn't becoming that guy, the insecure, jealous husband. But hell, maybe I should have been. The next morning, I found a receipt in her coat pocket. Dinner for two. Some Italian place downtown. A place she always said was too expensive. Funny how love gets cheap when it's yours, and suddenly worth the price when it's someone else's. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Not because I was weak, but because I needed time. Time to process the fact that my marriage, my sacrifices, my sweat-stained years might be nothing more than background noise to her little affair. I started watching her. Not obsessively, just carefully. The way a man watches a wall he knows is about to collapse. I noticed how she smiled when texting, how she hummed in the shower again, how she started wearing perfume, the same one she wore when we first met. Not for me, though. That much was clear. I used to be her everything. Now I wasn't even worth lying to properly. Once I tried to bring it up, just hinted, gently, "You seem distracted lately." She looked at me, dead in the eyes, and said, "I'm just tired, Tom." We both are. She wasn't wrong. But it wasn't the kind of tired you fix with sleep. It was the kind that seeps into your bones and makes your dreams feel like chores. And the worst part? I still loved her. God help me, I still wanted to wake up beside her. Still wanted to fix it, like I fixed drywall cracks and uneven beams. As if love worked that way. As if a hammer and level could realign hearts. But something in me knew, deep down, we were past repair. The foundation was rotting, and I was still kneeling there with a damn wrench, pretending it wasn't. I used to be the man who made her laugh so hard she spilled wine on the couch. Now I was just the man who passed her salt at dinner. The cracks were showing. And beneath them, something much darker waited. They say if you go looking for the truth, be prepared to bleed. I wasn't, but that didn't stop me. It happened on a Sunday. One of those gray, cold mornings where even the coffee feels lonely. Lauren was out, said she had brunch with her writing group. I didn't even pretend to believe it anymore. At that point, the lies were so baked into her voice, they tasted sweet if I let them sit long enough. She left her laptop open. That's all it took. I didn't plan it. I swear on my father's dusty tool belt, I never meant to snoop. But it was right there, open, screen glowing like a dare. One tab caught my eye, Untitled Docs. I clicked. Reflex, really? And that's when I read it. It wasn't a story. It was confessions. Fragments. Sentences that hit like hammers to the chest. He doesn't see me anymore. He hasn't for years. I used to think we had something deep. Now it just feels heavy. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to be kissed without duty behind it. I miss the way passion used to feel when I wasn't someone's project. She was talking about me. No names, but I knew. Every sentence was another nail in the coffin I hadn't realized was being built around our marriage. And then the worst one. I think I love the way Mark looks at me, like I'm still made of light. Mark. So I had a name now. A face. A man who apparently hadn't been covered in drywall dust for 2 decades straight. A man who didn't fall asleep on the couch with bad knees and a back brace. A man who didn't carry the weight of her dreams on his shoulders. I sat there, staring at the screen, and all I could think was, I knew. I knew it. And yet it still felt like being blindsided by a truck. I didn't slam the laptop shut. I didn't scream. I didn't even cry. I just leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling, tried to remember the last time she touched me, without pulling away right after. I wanted to hate her. God, I did. But instead, I hated myself. For being blind. For being boring. For letting her fall out of love with a man she once said was her solid ground. I made myself lunch, eggs and toast. Sat at the table and ate in silence. Her words bouncing around my skull like ricochets. I try to picture this Mark. I imagine some slick guy with a well-pressed shirt and a philosophy degree. Probably drinks red wine and calls it structured. I laughed. Out loud. Which felt insane. That's when I realized this wasn't heartbreak. Not yet. This was humiliation. The slow burn kind. The kind where you start rethinking every memory and wondering if the smiles were just part of the lie. I should have deleted the file. Should have closed it and walked away. But instead, I copied the text and emailed it to myself. Why? I don't know. Maybe I needed proof that I wasn't crazy. That I wasn't just tired, like she kept saying. That night, she came home like nothing happened. Kissed me on the cheek. Told me the brunch went long. I nodded. Told her dinner was in the oven. I watched her eat. I watched her laugh at a text. I watched her walk barefoot to the sink and hum some indie song like life was good. And I sat there thinking, does she even see me anymore? Or am I just a man-sized lamp that happens to pay the mortgage? The next morning, I printed the journal. I didn't leave it out. I didn't confront her. I folded it into a manila envelope and stuck it in my garage drawer, the one with the old blueprints and broken tape measures. Why? Because I needed a line in the sand, a place I could return to when the gaslighting started, when the tears and excuses inevitably rolled in. I needed something solid, something undeniable. Melanie don't get closure. We get silence. We get polite exits and the occasional pity hug. But not this time. Not me. She was right about one thing. I hadn't seen her for years. But now I did. And the woman I saw, she wasn't mine anymore. You ever watch a movie where the husband follows his wife and catches her with another man? Usually there's music playing, tense violins, dramatic close-ups. Real life's quieter, colder, like watching your house catch fire in slow motion from inside it. I wasn't planning to follow her. I really wasn't. But that Tuesday, she said she had a reading downtown. Some small literary event in a coffee shop slash bookstore she loved. I said, break a leg. She kissed my forehead and left wearing perfume she hadn't touched in 2 years. 10 minutes later, I grabbed my jacket and keys. I parked across the street, sat in the truck, engine off, pretending I was some amateur detective, which, let's be honest, I was. But Mansgut doesn't need a license to be right. The place had a big front window. Inside, it looked warm, cozy even, with shelves, soft lights, books stacked in chaos that somehow looked intentional. I saw her right away. Lauren. She wasn't reading anything. She wasn't holding a pen. She was holding his hand. Mark. He looked younger, maybe mid-40s. Wore glasses. The kind of guy who pronounces croissant like he's in Paris. Clean fingernails. Button-down shirt tucked into slim-fit jeans. I hated him immediately. They sat close, too close for writing partners. She leaned in when she laughed, touched his wrist when she said something. He looked at her like she was poetry, and she looked back like she'd finally been understood. I didn't storm in, didn't punch him. I just watched. That's the part they never show in movies, the watching. The awful, paralyzing stillness of it. Like your brain refuses to accept what your eyes are screaming. I'd never felt smaller. I watched them for 27 minutes. Yeah, I counted. Because that's what you do when your heart's breaking, but your hands have nothing to hold. At one point, she took a napkin and wiped a crumb from his mouth. I nearly vomited. Not from jealousy, from grief. Pure, ro, pathetic grief. The kind that punches you in the gut, then kicks you for caring. And still, I didn't move. The craziest part? I wasn't even angry. Not then. I was empty, hollowed out, like the shell of a man who used to matter. When they stood to leave, he touched the small of her back. Gentle, confident, like he'd done it before, like it belonged to him now. I ducked in my seat, heart pounding like I'd robbed a bank. They walked away, laughing. I sat there another half hour, unable to start the truck, just breathing, just existing. That night, I didn't say a word. She came home, humming. Said the reading went great. Asked if we had any wine left. I nodded. Watched her pour a glass. Watched her walk barefoot across the kitchen. Watched her stand in the exact spot where, 10 years ago, she'd danced with me after we installed the tile. That memory felt like a joke now. She drank, curled up on the couch, and fell asleep like nothing happened. I stood in the doorway and stared at her. This woman, the one I built a life for, the one I chose over and over again, was gone. Not physically, but gone. Replaced by someone who laughed in bookstores with men named Mark. I walked outside, barefoot into the cold. Stood on the porch like a man who doesn't know where to go because everything he built is already behind him and no longer his. And you know what hit me hardest? Not the betrayal, not the lies. It was realizing I'd become invisible in my own home. The third wheel to my own damn marriage. You ever try to talk to someone who's already left you, but didn't bother to take their body with them? That's what it felt like. Lauren sat at the table, scrolling on her phone like I wasn't even there. We hadn't spoken more than 4 words at a time in a week. Dinner's in the fridge. I'm home. Night. Thanks. The kind of words strangers mumble to each other in elevators. But tonight, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I walked into the kitchen, heart thudding like I'd done something wrong. Like I was the one having the affair. Like I was the one who betrayed a 20-year bond for latte dates and poetry workshops. She didn't even look up. I sat down across from her. Clear my throat. We need to talk. She blinked. Slowly. Set her phone down. Crossed her arms like I was a problem on her to-do list. Okay, she said. No worms. No curiosity. Just that dead, calm tone that women use when they've already made up their mind. I saw you, I said. She tilted her head. What? At the bookstore. With him. Pause. Just long enough to sting. Then she sighed. That long, theatrical sigh, like I was the one making things complicated. I wasn't hiding it, Tom. And that was the moment. The moment everything stopped. Like time got drunk and stumbled out the back door. She wasn't hiding it. No denied. No apology. No fight. Just facts. My mouth was dry. My fingers curled into fists under the table. How long? I asked. She looked up at the ceiling, thinking, like she was counting movie rentals or soup cans. 6 months, she said. 6 months. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because if I didn't, I'd scream loud enough for the neighbors to call the cops. She winced. Don't make a scene, Tom. Don't make a scene? Lady, you made a whole goddamn movie and didn't even cast me. I stood up, paced. The kitchen felt too small, the air too thick. I wanted to punch the wall, but it was drywall. I knew what was behind it. Empty space. What? I asked. That's all I could say. One stupid word. She looked at me. Really looked, maybe for the first time in months. Because I was drowning, she said. Because I felt like I was disappearing, and you didn't even notice. I wanted to argue, to list all the things I did. The house, the bills, the long shifts, the goddamn massages for her neck pain. But I didn't, because deep down, I knew she wasn't wrong. I hadn't noticed. I'd been surviving, working, fixing, providing, like some outdated VHS tape stuck on loop. But I also knew this. She never asked me to notice. She never said help. She just drifted silently. And now she blamed me for not chasing after a boat that never threw a rope. I'm not happy, she added. Like that was her mic drop. Neither was I. But I didn't cheat. I didn't check out emotionally and call it growth. I didn't crawl into someone else's arms and call it healing. Isterteher. At the woman I once watched fall asleep in my arms, murmuring dreams. Now she just looked tired, not in the way that sleep fixes, in a way that people look when they've already left, just forgot to pack. I walked out, drove for hours, didn't even know where I was going. Ended up in front of a construction site I once worked on. Half-built, silent, abandoned, fitting. I sat in the truck, looked at my hands. These same damn hands that built a home, held her waist, fixed the sink, carried groceries, built bookshelves, all of it. And now they just rested. Useless. When I got home, she was asleep on the couch. I didn't wake her. I didn't tuck her in. I didn't kiss her forehead like I used to. I just stood there in the hallway, staring at the ruins. Because that's what it was now. Not a life, not a marriage, not even a fight. Just ruins. And no blueprint could rebuild it. The thing about silence, real silence, is that it doesn't arrive all at once. It seeps in quiet at first. Then it sits down beside you, wraps its arm around your shoulder, and says, she's not coming back. That morning fell off from the second I opened my eyes. No humming in the kitchen. No clink of spoons against the mug. No scent of her stupid cinnamon tea. Just a strange, hovering stillness. The kind you get after a power outage, when nothing buzzes, but your skin knows something's wrong. I got out of bed and walked through the house like it belonged to someone else. Her purse? Gone. Her shoes? Not by the door. The bathroom counter? Clean. Too clean. Like someone scrubbed away her existence with antiseptic precision. I opened her closet. Empty. Not a sock. Not a hanger swinging in protest. Just air. It didn't feel like she packed. It felt like she evaporated. I stood there for a full minute, waiting for my brain to catch up. Then I walked back to the kitchen. Table. Fridge. Couch. The picture of us in Yosemite? Gone. She didn't leave a note. No boy timid. No text. No goodbye. Nothing. Just gone. And for the first time in my life, I felt dangerous. Not to her. To myself. My hand shook. My jaw clenched so hard my molars throbbed. I tried to breathe, but it felt like there was insulation foam in my chest. I went outside, sat on the porch. Same spot I used to drink my morning coffee in when we still had a we. Now it was just me, and the wind, and the emptiness inside my rib cage, echoing like a gutted house. Hours passed. No message. I called her sister. Haven't heard from her in weeks. I called her job. She quit 3 days ago. I called the number she'd used for years. Straight to voicemail. And that's when I started thinking the worst. Not in the way most men would. Not where is she, but what will they think I did? Because when your wife disappears without warning, no trace, no calls, no alibi, and you've got a file cabinet full of arguments and a face that hasn't smiled in months, people don't ask logical questions. They go full Dateline. So I did the only thing I could think of. I went to the police. Sat down in a pale gray office with a cop who looked like he'd rather be doing literally anything else. She left, I said, but I didn't do anything. She just disappeared. He raised an eyebrow. Took notes like he was already prepping the file for Netflix. Any history of domestic conflict? No. Any financial disputes? Only the house. I paid for it. Any reason she'd run? I paused. And there it was, the moment the shift happens, where your pain becomes their suspicion. I told him about the affair, about Mark, about the bookstore. I left out the part where I followed her, of course. Didn't want to hand him the motive on a silver platter. He nodded slowly, tapped his pen. We'll file a missing persons report. You should stay reachable. No, SHD. Back home, the silence was worse. I walked the halls like they were crime scenes. Kept waiting for a ghost, for a sign, for anything. I found myself checking the garage, then the attic, then the crawl space. Not because I thought she was there, but because they would. If the police ever came knocking, I knew the drill. Husband alone, no alibi, signs of emotional strain. Check, check, check. That night I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling fan, spinning slowly like the days ahead of me. I thought about calling her, leaving a message, screaming into the void. But what would I say? Hey, just wondering if you ghosted me or faked your death. Call me back. No thanks. Instead, I poured a drink, sat in the dark, let the cold creep in, and then I saw it. An envelope, tucked between the couch cushions, like a punchline waiting for its moment. I opened it. One sheet of paper, blank, no words, no name, just a clean white sheet, like she was starting over and I wasn't even worth the ink. And that's when I broke. Not loudly, not with fists, not with sobs. I just sat there, staring at the paper, realizing this wasn't revenge. This wasn't drama. This was erasure. And somehow, that hurt more than anything else. You know what nobody warns you about when your wife disappears? The silence doesn't stay silent. It morphs, grows teeth, starts whispering in your ear, but not with her voice. With everyone else's. The neighbors, for one. The day after I filed the report, I caught Mrs. Kessler across the street staring at my window like it owed her money. She's the kind who knows everyone's garbage day and tracks the HOA violations like it's her job. She waved. I didn't wave back. That afternoon, 2 detectives came to the house. One young, chewing gum like a teenager. The other older, with tired eyes and a notepad he never put down. They didn't say, "We think you did it." They didn't have to. They looked around the house like it was a museum of failed marriage. They asked to see our bedroom, the garage, the basement. I showed them everything. Hell, I offered them coffee. The older one asked, any medication she was taking? Antidepressants, mood stabilizers, anything. I told them no, unless you count betrayal as a chemical imbalance. They nodded like they'd heard all before. Because they had. Before leaving, the younger one asked, "Do you own any firearms?" I laughed. He didn't. I told him no. My only weapons were sarcasm and a torque wrench. Neither had been used recently. That night, the paranoia arrived in full force. Every car that slowed near the driveway, the cops, every knock at the door, A neighbor with questions they pretended were concerned. I started checking the locks more often, not because I was afraid of someone breaking in, but because part of me expected someone to come looking for her. And if they found her, God help me, I didn't know what I wanted. Because here's the truth. I wasn't sure anymore if I wanted her found. Not dead, not hurt, just gone, away, somewhere else, with someone else, with him. Let her be his problem now. Let Mark wake up next to that vacuum of affection and wonder when the hell she stopped smiling at him, too. Let him dig through her emotional wreckage while she writes poems about feeling unseen. Let him stand in a police station trying to explain why a woman with a yoga mat and oat milk obsession vanished overnight. I was done, but I couldn't say that out loud. Not when every word I spoke might be used against me in some cold interrogation room under flickering lights. So I stayed quiet, took walks late at night when nobody could see me, avoided calls, ignored the stares. I became a ghost in my own story. One night, a voice message from her sister came through. I know you two had issues, but Lauren wouldn't just leave without telling anyone. You sure she didn't say anything? I didn't respond, because honestly, I wasn't sure of anything anymore. My memory had started playing tricks on me. Had she really said goodbye? Had she ever looked back when she walked out that door? Had I imagined the blank note? Or did I give it meaning because I needed to? I opened the garage drawer where I kept the printed journal entries, her private thoughts, her complaints, her confessions. And I reread them, line by line. At some point, they stopped sounding like betrayal and started sounding like a eulogy for a woman who died long before she disappeared. I poured myself a drink, sat on the porch, looked up at the stars, and wondered how many of them were already dead but still shining. That's what Lauren was to me now, light from corpse. And here I was, sitting under it, waiting for the glow to fade. They say closure is a myth, that real life doesn't give you neat little bows and epilogues. No dramatic last words. No soundtrack swells. Just life, moving on, with or without your consent. It had been 2 months since Lauren vanished. The police stopped calling. The neighbors got bored. Even her sister, once frantic, now left only quiet, just checking texts that I never replied to. The world does what it always does, forgets. And me? I started rebuilding. Not metaphorically. Literally. I tore down the guest room. The one she used to sit in when she didn't want to sleep beside me anymore. Ripped the walls down to studs. Rewired it. Repainted it. No more past in that room. Just drywall and clean edges. My kind of healing. Then one morning, an envelope arrived. No return address. No handwriting. Inside, a legal letter. From her lawyer. She was alive. Alive, and starting a new chapter. Somewhere out west. Colorado, maybe. Oregon. I didn't care. The letter said she wouldn't be returning. That she wanted no further contact. That she had no intention of claiming anything. Not the house, not the accounts, not even the dog she used to say she couldn't live without. There was a waiver. Clean. Cold. Final. I read it once. Then again. Then I smiled. Not because I was happy, but because it was done. And not because she said so, but because I did. I signed it. No note. No reply. No rage. Just ink. That night, I poured myself a drink. Sat on the porch. Same spot. Different man. I looked at the stars again. This time, they didn't feel dead. They just felt far. And that was okay. I didn't want revenge. Didn't need closure. Didn't want her to suffer. I just wanted peace. And I found it, not in answers, but in silence. The kind you choose. The kind that rebuilds. I went inside, closed the door, locked it, not out of fear, but finality. Then I turned off the lights and sat in the dark. Not alone, just finally, entirely, unapologetically free.